This video starts off with me talking about assumptions that we made coming out of yoga school and Ayurveda school, that we'd have clients, we'd have students, and then part of the reality of a real career starting. And in this video, we go into habits and identity and evolution and how to actually shift who you are really through your habits. Enjoy.
The assumption was that people would do what you said. Well, first of all, the assumption, actually there are two assumptions. That's the second assumption. The first assumption was there would be an endless stream of clients coming to you to find out what you would say. And then the second assumption that people would do what you said. And so it took me a long time to figure out that first assumption about, oh, people aren't actually just going to come because you hang your shingle. Although I did on the highway. Winston and I were talking about this the other day. I'm like, wow, we took the shingle down and crazy people don't show up anymore. Like crazy people would show up and be like, you are the healer, heal me. And it was like, okay, no, that's not quite what I do. Okay, so the right people would show up was the first assumption. And the second assumption was that they would do it you told them to do. And it took me just a ludicrous amount of time to figure that second one out. And we're really figuring it out in the yoga health coaching. We're getting massive traction with habit change science. There's been amazing breakthroughs in habit change science in the last couple years, definitely in the last 15 years, but really in the last 2 to 3 years, it's been pretty huge. And you all had access to the James Clear podcast with the yoga health coaches last December. And we talked a lot about identity. We talked a lot about how if you want to change your habits, you have to change your identity. I think this is intrinsic in yoga and Ayurveda, but making it explicit changes the game. Right? So it's intrinsic that we're kind of like messing with our identity. We're dissolving who we are. We're, in many ways, following a path, adopting whatever the teachings are and becoming more of that. Habit change science is a lot more, I think, at the core of tantric philosophy, which is like, you're totally free, do whatever you want. And if you're really free, you're really connected. So you're going to do things that are really good, are really smart, and create beauty. Like that's what naturally happens when you're connected. So we almost don't even have to say that if you're connected, because it's like a precursor. So if we look at these two things together and we say, well, identity is at the core of it. So if we have the core, the center, is our identity. Of who we are. And then we have traits that we take on. Like I'm a person, Winston and I always joke, because I'll never wear something like this in Teton Valley unless it's like a yoga thing. And I'm like, look, I'm going to dress for like the yoga thing. I'm going to put on my yoga identity. I'm going to take off my trucker's hat and my Carhartt sweatshirt. Right? We know. Tanya lives over the hill. Hannah lives over the hill. It's like we don't, I don't know, it's a big deal when we wear our lip gloss, right, ladies? Night on the town, we got lip gloss. Okay, so we have these identities, and we get really locked in our identity. Like, oh, I'm a person that's kind of shy and insecure. Like, Sarah, I'm going to just blatantly share everything that I overhear with you all, if it's helpful. Sarah was saying, like, oh, I'm one of those people in conversation. I try to do a roundabout redirect. So going straight at it is going to be hard, like growing edge, right? So there's an identity change there. Do you see that? I'm a person who does this to, wait, that's not that functional anymore. Maybe super useful in the past so I wouldn't get hit. Right? Good evolutionary reason for a lot of our tendencies, our identities, but not so useful in the future. So that's when we look at, okay, for identity shift, what happens is the next layer out is that we're going to have different actions. Sarah's not going to go around the conversation. She's not going to mince words with you this weekend. She might not be as...
Everybody gets to... You're going to hold me accountable.
We're having Sarah Rosnack in full throttle from Sandpoint, Idaho this weekend. You came to see this. So the action changes. And then this third circle, this third outside, what happens is this is how we see Sarah. So you could say the performance. That's a James Clear. James Clear explains this as performance. I know he doesn't. He says with the actions, he says performance. The third, he says, is appearance. I think it's easier to say is like, what is the world experiencing of you? Okay, so you could say appearance, if that works for you. I'm just going to write world's experience of you, because for me that lands. You want to find words that land for you if you don't change them. That's what I do all the time, which is why now there's this whole matrika around Yogahealer, these terms that we make up, like Dharma up, and all of a sudden we all have the same shared experience. You want to make sure that a teaching resonates with you, so change the words, make it better. If they're better than mine, tell me, and then I'll change them. So the world's experience of you. So you all might meet a version of Sarah that people in Sandpoint haven't met. And that will help her reinforce her new identity, which will help her step forward in more functional, connective, innovative actions. And then the world will experience more of that, and then that identity will stabilize again at that higher level. So we're trying to stabilize an identity at a higher level. If we want to, these are going to be everywhere in 3 days, because I have 4 pads. Okay, I came totally prepared. Right? So if we want a Dharma up, if we're taking it up a level, it's got to change. Because our identity is stuck at a certain level of Dharma. It's lodged there. I mean, it might be, because we've been hanging out for a while, so it might be like, kind of like moving, mobile. But now we're getting really conscious of like, okay, wow. For this to change, I need different actions. In yoga health coaching, these are habits that we get really dialed into, the daily habits of Ayurveda, of just functional living. And then what happens is we get a lot more energy, we're a lot more grounded, we're a lot more connected. So the world experiences us as a more energetic, inspiring, innovative person. Right? And then that feeds into like who I am. Oh, I'm an energetic, inspiring, innovative person. Who are you? You know? Right? And then that continues to happen. What we want to be conscious of is that we can make this whole process conscious. We can see the little parts of our identity that are no longer functional, that served really an amazing historic feat over maybe the last 10,000 years, and now they're totally outdated. We don't need to pass it on to our children. We don't need to pass it through our friend groups. It's done. And so we can stand in the truth of what we know and the truth of what we're trying to become. And when we do this, what happens is the world changes. The only way the world can change is if we change, right? We're creating the world. We're creating reality. Someone had to create the iPhone 5S. It's a cool little thing, right? Like someone decided to create something, and so it exists. We can start to do that in our identity, and it starts to have a ripple out impact on what actually happens in the world. So we start to take on a whole other level of co-creativity with evolution itself, with also the world as it's showing up every day for ourselves.